Hey, welcome back to the NOTCAST. It is Wednesday, 9th of August 2023. This is number 310, which is a shocker that I've got such high numbers, at least it is for me. But today I am talking about the Flaming Lips, the finest export from Oklahoma. And I include my ex-wife in that statement, actually. That didn't work out so well. But I found a lifelong love of the Flaming Lips before I met them, so it didn't work out so badly after all. Today I am talking about their, oh God, I don't even know how many albums this is now, their 2006 to 2008 period, which includes the album At War with the Mystics, the UFOs at the Zoo, and the Christmas on Mars motion picture, although I think maybe calling it a motion picture is grossly overstating the degree of professionalism. Maybe we should think about the Flaming Lips instead in terms of them kind of like a triumph of ambition over ability. Christmas on Mars is quite amateurish, and At War with the Mystics is quite fun indeed. So this is the first of the Flaming Lips albums that was released post Fame. I think Fame is probably overstating it, but they had a commercial resurgence. Not resurgence actually, because they were never really vastly popular beforehand, but with the Yoshimi Battles the Pink Robots album, which I mentioned in a previous NOTCAST, they went into the position which often happens, which is you suddenly find yourself perhaps more popular than you'd originally anticipated yourselves being. The idea that if you're an artist, I mean, certainly you probably don't start off making records with the idea of doing it just to be famous, but you kind of don't run from success at the same time. You kind of make records because that's the thing that you really want to do, and you find out that you can make a reasonable living doing it, and it's more fun than working in an office, although I suppose technically a recording studio could be regarded as an office, depending on who you were talking to and how cynical you want to be. And there's always a bit of a gap between a band becoming quite popular and selling a number of tickets and selling a number of records and the moment when that's reflected necessarily in your bank account. That period apparently is normally about 6 months. So you have a 6-month period where you're quite popular, but you're still broke, especially if you weren't particularly big as a band to start off with. And At War with the Mystics, which was released on the 3rd of April 2006, is most definitely a post-Fame album. It's perhaps not quite as big a come down as Pulp's This Is Hardcore or Oasis's Be Here Now, but it's an album that if you listen to it and you know the signs, you can carefully see that this is a band that have reached a degree of popularity which perhaps they hadn't originally anticipated. So I'm going to open this. This is an original 2006 gatefold version of the record inside a very tightly packed sleeve, and let me just quickly check. Yeah, I think this is coloured vinyl as well, and just talk through the album and the songs that are on it and all the bonus tracks that go with it, because there's rather a lot to go through in this record. Now, what I will say first and foremost about At War with the Mystics, I really like it. It's the last Flaming Lips album that I love unreservedly, and I say unreservedly because things changed after the release of At War with the Mystics. We had the Flaming Lips then became actually very prolific. So between 2002 and 2006, there wasn't really anything in the way of a Flaming Lips record or a new studio album. There were new studio recordings, but there wasn't a new studio album. And then in 2006, we had At War with the Mystics. 2007, we had the UFOs at the Zoo live release. 2008 had the Christmas on Mars soundtrack. 2009, Embryonics. 2010, Dark Side of the Moon. 2011 saw 6 EPs and a 24-hour song and a 6-hour song. 2012 saw the Heady Friends album. 2013 saw the Terror and Peace Sword. 2014 saw With a Little Help from My Friends and the Electric Worms and Imagine It's Christmas. Basically, the band became very prolific, and this is the last period of time when the band were not vastly prolific. And I think this is what makes At War with the Mystics, in my opinion, a very strong album. Because when people stopped releasing singles in, say, 2009, 2010, and it all became bonus tracks, Walmart extra tracks, extra songs only on a cassette or some other bullshit, is that you then found that when the Flaming Lips would record 40 songs or 45 songs, and my playlist of At War with the Mystics, by the way, is 37 songs. When you got to that stage, instead of releasing the best 12 songs on an album every 3 years and the other 30 or so songs on various multi-formats. Everything went on an album. And that meant that you got an album every year, and some of those albums were good, and some of those albums weren't good. It's like the Prince effect. Prince released an album every year, and if he'd released an album every 4 years and put the compilation of the best of those 4 albums out on the single album, everyone goes, oh, incredible! Every album, absolute winner, all killer, no filler, baby. Whereas if you release an album every year, and you have the pressure to do 12, 13 songs every year, and then you end up going, so not only are we touring and we're having a private life, but we're also recording, we have to write a song a month. That's quite a high bar for some people. I mean, for me, I write a song about every 2 weeks, some good, some bad. And in fact, I've just taken my first steps into a wider world. I bought myself a digital audio workstation, and I'm going to start recording them, and who knows, I might be sticking them up, and you might listen to them and go, oh God, stick to the NOTCAST, mate, your singing's fucking atrocious. But never quite as bad as Ian Brown live. And so what we had with At War with the Mystics was, the 12 best songs, or the 11 best songs, out of an assortment of about 37 or 38 songs which were recorded during this period. And so for At War with the Mystics, we had really what I regard to be an absolutely phenomenal modern day prog rock album. Now, prog rock, not a dirty word in my mind. I mean, sure, there's that cliche that if you're into prog rock, you've got to like Porcupine Tree, and you've got to like sad songs about whales that won't fuck. And that's not me. As far as I'm concerned, prog rock, and I count very many great things in it, also kind of veers quite close to kind of alt rock or math rock or however you want to describe it. Rock, actually, K-rock. But it's not that at all. It's about songs that don't always follow necessarily the conventional verse, chorus, verse, bridge structure, which is the way songs sometimes should be. So At War with the Mystics is in my opinion, an absolutely solid, brilliant Flaming Lips album. It's in my top 3. The other 3, perhaps unsurprisingly, are The Soft Bulletin and Yoshimi Battles the Pink Robots. From here, as I've said before, there were almost too many albums. It became quite difficult to work out which ones were going to be good and which ones weren't going to be good, and you ended up just buying every single one of them. I think they've released something like 17 albums after this in the past 17 years. Very busy. Not that I'm complaining. I've bought them all. Haven't loved them all, but I've bought them all, listened to them all, and given them a damn good shot. So At War with the Mystics, they're released on the 3rd of April, 2006. And it starts off with the track, the Yeah, Yeah, Yeah song. And that's both supremely annoying and very, very catchy indeed. It was released as a single on the 17th of April 2006. It's the second single that was released from the album, maybe the third actually, and it got in the UK, it got a picture disc edition here, backed with the track Why Does It End? And you can kind of see from there's a picture of the 3 guys that are the Flaming Lips, and on the back there's an excerpt from the from the sleeve art. I don't quite know why they were doing 7-inch picture discs. I'm not sure anybody was especially kind of listening to them, but there it was, the Yeah, Yeah, Yeah song. Now, this was one of their bigger hits. I think it got to number 16 in the UK pop charts on the 17th of April 2006. And the first single to be released from the album was The Wand, which here again is a picture disc of The Wand, the 7-inch, released on the 10th of January 2006. Although a re-release charted in the UK on the 17th of July 2006. A good old number 41 in the UK pop charts, pop pickers. So not even in the top 40. I think The Wand is a really great song. And if I remember correctly, the subtitle for The Wand is something like The Will Always Negates Defeat. Yes, it is. Exactly. That is the title according to the subtitle on the album. This is back to the track called You've Got to Hold On, which is pretty good. At this point, again, that might be song 14 or the 14th best song to be released out of the process. So when you've got 37 songs, your top 14 are going to be pretty good. And then we also had, and here it is, released in 2008, another picture disc. This is the Christmas on Mars picture disc. That is Silent Night, and Lord Can You Hear Me, back to the track called It's Christmas Time Again. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's go song by song into At War with the Mystics. So the thing I'll say about At War with the Mystics is it really, really reminds me of a Pink Floyd album from about 1971 that was never made. First and foremost, the sequencing on this album is absolutely phenomenal. And I mean that with all due respect. Sequencing is super, super important. And if you get your sequencing wrong, you get your album wrong. So, for example, Head on the Door by The Cure has Kyoto's song as number 2. It's not the right place for that particular song. The sequencing on this album is, in my opinion, immaculate, because every track feels like it's both a continuation of the themes of the previous track, but also leads in very nicely to the subsequent song. So the placement is absolutely spot on. From the lyrical conceits and the lyrical themes that are mentioned in multiple songs, all the way through to even things like having songs in the same tempo or the same key, or having almost like the same kind of organ sound at the end of the song compared to the start of a similar one. They all feel like they're effectively 12 separate songs that all were played together at the same time, that belong together in a suite, much like Dark Side of the Moon, Wish You Were Here, but also very clearly, kind of very obviously, the best songs. So sometimes you listen to songs and you kind of go, it's not very good, is it? I mean, it really isn't. Don't take it personally, song, but you're not very good. And then you have other songs where you kind of sit there and go, that's a hit. And sometimes when you hear a song for the first time, you kind of go, I'm going to be listening to this song for the rest of my life. It's a phenomenal experience to have. Actually, is to listen to a song and go, I'm going to know you for the next 40, 50 years, or however long I'm going to be on the planet. And I'm going to get to know and love every inch of that song. So we start off with the Yeah, Yeah, Yeah song. And in order to make this work, let's open the inner sleeve here. This is, I think this is side 1, actually. So this is the orange vinyl disc, side 1, which is on this version of the LP, the Yeah, Yeah, Yeah song, the Free Radicals, and the Sound of Failure. Now, I love the Yeah, Yeah, Yeah song because it's funny, it's silly, the lyrics are a little bit daft, and at the same point, they explore the concept of fame. So if you're famous, powerful, rich, whatever it is, there's always the idea that people around you are hanging around with you because of your fame or your wealth or your influence or your attractiveness. They're hanging out with you because they kind of feel that they can get a kind of like sorry, that's far too bright, I'm going to move that. They feel that they're hanging out with you so you can get a kind of reflected glory from them. And then, the lyric for the Yeah, Yeah, Yeah song is, if you could blow up the world with a flick of a switch, would you do it? And if you could make everybody poor just so you could be rich, would you do it? And if you could watch everybody work while you just lay on your back, would you do it? And if you can take all the love without giving any back, would you do it? And it's a there's a second verse that's very similar around, if you could make all your own money and then give it over to everybody, would you do it? And if you knew all the answers and you could give it to the masses, would you do it? It's a very dangerous thing to do exactly what you want because you cannot know yourself or what you'd really do. It's a really good lyric, and it really reflects that kind of element of, who am I? What am I? What am I really about? And the idea of chasing things like paradise syndrome, which has been identified as the kind of like the idea of, like, as Heath Ledger said in The Dark Knight, is like, I'm like a dog chasing a car. I wouldn't know what to do with it if I caught it. The Yeah, Yeah, Yeah song is a song that is kind of addressing that idea of going, if you had all the things that you thought you wanted, money, power, being attractive, irresistible, etc., what would that do to you? Would that change you? Now, the idea is you can always tell who somebody is by how they talk to the staff that serve them in restaurants. Always a good trick to, if you're ever going on a date, is find out how they treat the people that they talk to in the restaurants, because that will tell you everything you need to know about how that person will treat somebody over whom that person, how somebody that's got no power, no control, no influence over them. How do they treat somebody that, if they treat them badly, there is absolutely no recourse to them, there's no consequences. If they treat that person well, that's a good person. If they don't treat that person well, if they're rude to serving staff or bar staff or whoever, then that tells you all you need to know about, this is how they would treat you if they thought they could get away with it. So the Yeah, Yeah, Yeah song is a song that opens all of those little cans of worms, those buckets of ideas around power and wealth and influence and ego, and kind of peers into the abyss, and the abyss stares back and goes, What would you do with all that power? Would you really know yourself? And you can dance to it, and it's funny and it's silly and it's built on this lovely call and response kind of vocal between Wayne and Steve Drozd. And Steve is, in my opinion, I'm not a Flaming Lips fan, I'm a Steve Drozd fan. He's a genius. Every band needs one guy that can play any instrument you put in front of him and can do it to an astonishing standard. And when a band has somebody like that, they become unstoppable creatively. So think about somebody like Neil Codling in Suede, Alan Wilder in Depeche Mode, Steve Drozd in Flaming Lips, for example, is Trey Spruance in Mr. Bungle, a guy that can play pretty much anything you give him, and he's really bloody good at it and has a weird worldview. And then all of a sudden you kind of go, with all that power, you can go anywhere, you can be anything, and you can do whatever you want. And it's really interesting to see when bands don't have that person, because most bands revolve around one person that actually has the driving force that runs through everything like a stick of rock. In Metallica, not the most musically adept member is Lars Ulrich, for example. But you've got somebody that can just do anything and then therefore just goes off and does it. So the Yeah 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 song, number 16, With a Bullet in the UK. Quite good. I really like it. I think it's a great song. There is an extended mix of Yeah 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 on the DVD and 5.1 version of the album, which was released later on. But it's indistinguishably, it's unnoticeably extended. It's like 21 seconds longer or something. There's a few more Yeah Yeah Yeahs and a few more backing vocals. It doesn't make any difference to the main structure of the song at all. That is kind of how it works. Second song is Free Radical, played live a lot, not a single, although it was re-recorded in the little-known language Simlish, which is the language that's used in the Sims computer game, by Wayne, and you could get a copy of it from the Sims. There was a time when the Sims was big. Depeche Mode did an alternate language vocal for Suffer Well in Simlish around about 2005, 2006 as well. Don't understand the appeal of it, but there you are. Now, Free Radicals is one of the most obviously political songs in the band's canon. There's a lyric around, "You're turning into a poor man's Donald Trump, and I know those circumstances make you want to jump. You think you're radical. In fact, you're fanatical." And well, that's an interesting way of looking at it, because at the time before Donald Trump became president of the United States, which I still cannot believe happened, how did he ever become president? It's like putting Deputy Dog in charge of the LAPD or somebody. There's a thing called Kazakhstocracy, which is the idea that we are ruled by the very worst among us, and Donald Trump is undoubtedly one of the most vain, self-obsessed, and least considerate human beings on the planet, even less considerate than an ex of mine who I refuse to name, not one I've mentioned earlier. But the idea that even at that point, Donald Trump was just like, what? I was listening to an interview with Ice-T when he was talking about meeting Donald Trump, or more correctly, having the opportunity to meet Donald Trump. And this was before Donald Trump was on the Apprentice or whatever it was called. And he was like, why do I want to meet him? He's rich, but he's not particularly nice, and he's just a property developer. What possible reason have I got to want to meet Donald Trump? Donald Trump being famous because he's so like Batman. His superpower was he had loads of money. He wasn't liked. He wasn't respected. People didn't want to meet him. People were just like, I don't want to meet that guy. He's a dick. And then if you get to that point where you've got fame and notoriety, and most of the time when you've got that, people want to meet you because of that. Such as, for example, in the Yeah 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 song when I was talking earlier about it, is people going, well, actually, I don't want to meet Donald Trump because he's a property developer and he's rich and I don't particularly like him. He seems like an unpleasant man with a bad sense of humour. And then you kind of go, I think you're right there. I think you've got it. So Free Radicals at the time, the song was like a poor man's Donald Trump, was going, well, you're not particularly rich, you're not liked, you're not respected, nobody really likes you, and kind of going, and if that's what you like, why would anybody want to be with you? And then that's now as people get older, there's the idea that people have less friends as they get older, because one, your friends start to die, and secondly, you start to trim out the people that you think aren't really like you very much, or you don't have very much in common with. So that's where part of that happens. But with that lyric in Free Radicals, and there's another one around, you know, I'll tell you right now, you ought to change your minds. All of your friends are standing in a line and they're getting tired of your attitude fast without your bodyguards. How long would you last? And again, talking earlier in Yeah, Yeah, Yeah about the idea of fame as a construct and a concept, that's where this album really takes that and goes, it's rapping. It's not the gift. It's just a set of things that sit outside and beyond an individual. And then we have song 3, which is The Sound of Failure. It's dark. Is it always this dark? Now, I've got no notes for this song. In fact, I've got no notes for most of the songs on this album because I don't really know what to say about them. It's fair to say The Sound of Failure is... It has a really... It says, so go tell Brittany and go tell Gwen she's not trying to go against all them. She's too scared and she can't pretend to understand where it begins or where it ends. And then you kind of go... yeah, okay, so this is an album that's really about living in a different atmosphere to most of the fans. An area where perception and identity and reality all kind of smush together, and it becomes very difficult to work out what's real and what isn't real, and how does that work, and what are the drivers that are inside each one of these particular things. So The Sound of Failure is dark. Is it always this dark? Is a pretty good track, and then it kind of sits as a third point where it kind of starts to move beyond the idea of concepts of fame and power and money and influence and being listened to, and goes somewhere else. With track 4, so this is where we flip the side over, number 2. Hello, I'm side 2 of the LP. With My Cosmic Autumn Rebellion, which has the subtitle, which was earlier, of The Inner Life as a Blazing Shield of Defiance and Optimism, a Celestial Spear of Action. I have no idea what that means. I really don't. It's a great song. I love the instrumental textures on this, and the instrumental textures on lots of tracks on the album really remind me of Pink Floyd's Metal album and the Obscured by Clouds album. Especially when you've got one of the songs, song 11 is called Pompeii at Gotterdamerung. Well, Pink Floyd played Pompeii, and that Pompeii, and that track really sounds like a kind of remix or re-recording of One of These Days. Like if you'd heard One of These Days in a dream, and then you'd woken up and you decided that you were going to try and record what you'd just heard in the dream. And dreams are bullshit, by the way. They don't make any sense. You know, I had a lovely dream earlier. But I was like, this is impossible. I can't go to your house in Melbourne, Australia, and hang out with you because I've never been to Australia, and that would take a 21-hour flight, and that doesn't make any sense. So dreams are bullshit. But Pompeii, Gotterdamerung is a song that to me really feels like somebody heard One of These Days in a dream and then tried to record it the moment that they woke up. It's strange. Although that's track 11, I really should be talking about track 5 now, or track 4. So My Cosmic Autumn Rebellion, I'm not really sure what that means. And then there's Vein of Stars, which is track 5, which is this lovely instrumental, but it's kind of lyric, and the lyric is quite solid around everything that it's trying to describe. Is that idea of what is the future, what is heaven, what is hell, all that type of stuff. These are existential crises which people are kind of wrestling with on a lyrical basis, and you kind of think, well, sometimes when you've got lyrics and the ideas that the things that you kind of grasp with lyrics are, you know, who am I, where am I, why do I feel this way, as Jesus Jones had it on Who, Where, Why, the greatest existential crisis that you can dance to. But Vein of Stars does the same type of thing. It doesn't have a subtitle, unlike pretty much every other song on the album. And then we have track 6 on side 2 here, or track 3 side 2, or track 6 on your CD, your Spotify playlist, is The Wizard Turns On the Giant Silver Flashlight and puts on his werewolf moccasins. I'm beginning to think that they're just throwing random words out. I don't think that actually has any meaning at all. That's an instrumental. I can't tell you what the lyrics to that one are about. There are no lyrics printed on the sleeve at all. It is, of course, absolutely fantastic. I really love it, but it doesn't mean it's something that will stick with you forever. Now, the weird thing about this record is that the inner sleeves are designed in such a way that you kind of see, when I look at inner sleeves, I take the idea from the inner sleeves. Well, where does the copyright sit on there? And you kind of go, right, so that's just a weird place to put the inner sleeve. But there we are. And again, the cover art, this looks a little bit like the film Crystal Voyager by Ian Ames, which was, by the way, and this will surprise you, used as the soundtrack to, or more correctly, as the accompaniment to a Pink Floyd song in 1974. One of these days, I think. So we go to side 3, track 7. It overtakes me. The stars are so big. I am so small. Do I stand a chance? There, side 3. That's your lovely blue turquoise vinyl here. The lyric is very, very slim on this. It's like it overtakes me, it master slaves me, it wakes and bakes me. You know it isn't real. You'll disappear in a black hole, floating out of control. Oh wow. And I'm there looking up at the sky, and I'm scared, thinking about the way that I don't understand anything at all, and how it overtakes me, and I'm just so small. Do I stand a chance? I mean, really, like all the best pop songs, the lyrics are really bloody miserable, and the music sounds like you're being kissed by God, which is my favourite type of genre, by the way, for anything. Now, this is a very memorable, very short, punchy, fast song. It was released as a single in the UK on the 13th of November 2006 as the It Overtakes Me yellow vinyl EP and as a 4-track CD. Now, the strange thing is, It Overtakes Me is effectively, actually, I think, the closest thing that the Flaming Lips have ever come to an epic. Yet, for some reason, they didn't actually commit to it on the album. So the album version is about 7 minutes long, and it's effectively 2 songs, breaks in the middle and turns into an instrumental workout. On the 12-inch, same performance, apart from the fact that, again, it breaks in the middle and turns into an instrumental workout, but it's a completely different instrumental workout. The band have written 2 codas for the same song, 2 endings for the same song, and have gone with that. And then somehow somebody somewhere has kind of gone, you can't put all 3 together. Well, you can, because I've taken the multi-tracks and I've remixed it, putting all those bits together to create the 10-minute version of the song, which to me is the definitive version of it. And Dean, if you're watching this, I do owe you an email with that track on. I know I've been talking about it for a while. For the rest of you, I might upload it somewhere so you can listen to it at some point. And when I do, I'll put it in the comments section. But to me, It Overtakes Me is the Flaming Lips epic. It's the nearest thing that they have to a track like 3 Days or Autobahn, a song where there's multiple parts that are all connected and joined, and they're part of the same ecosystem. They're closely related, they work well, they play well together. But then you listen to them and you kind of go, very much that you feel like you've been taken on a journey from one point to another point. And of course, as it is the Flaming Lips, you've got a side order of existential despair and space rock that sounds like the Beach Boys covered by Pavement. It's glorious. I absolutely love it, of course. Maybe Pavement isn't the right choice, but certainly not Black Flag. And then we have track 8. Track 8 is Mr. Ambulance Driver, which wasn't released as a single in the UK. It was released as it was serviced to radio, I think is the official word to describe it. And the servicing to radio is that they made a video. They stuck the video on the VOIZ video overview in deceleration compilation DVD that was released in 2005, and it was played on the radio to promote an album that hadn't yet come out. I don't understand why they did that at that point, but that's what they did, and that's how it worked. And Mr. Ambulance Driver is, perfectly cromulent track, by the way. It's pretty good. And again, it's around an existential crisis around somebody that's waiting for an ambulance driver, and it's a song that's addressing the ambulance driver and going, I'm waiting for you, and I don't quite know what the problem is, but I know I'm not well, and things are going to be weird, and we can't trade places. Our lives are strangely our own. Tell me, before everyone else dies, for everyone that dies, someone new is born. These are bleak, bleak lyrics, staring down the barrel of mortality and trying to make them palatable and optimistic. And there's a kind of like a Zen approach to it the idea that, yeah, no, you can't be the richest man in the graveyard, and everything that kind of goes with it. Right, track 9 is Haven't Got a Clue. You haven't got a clue, you don't know what to do, you've used your money and your friends to try and trick me, but you won't trick me. And then, as I've said before, the first single to be commercially released from the album, The Wand, the will always negates defeat. And it's about, you've got the power in there, waving your wand in the air, and then there's a kind of like, it flips it on its head and says, we've got the power now, motherfucker, that's where it belongs, and you've got that right, you know that it is. And they've got their weapons, I've got a plan, and it's here in my head, a baton made of light. The idea that there's a righteousness to justice, to the arc of justice, and that the good guys always win, and they always defeat the baddies, which isn't strictly true, because the baddies don't always fight fair, and sometimes they don't realise they're the baddies. Trump and co didn't realise they're literally the motherfucking empire. And I think The Wand is a great song. It works really, really well, and I'm going to go through the single for it in a minute, and talk through the B-sides as well. But I just love it. I think it's one of the great songs. Built this primal driving riff that kind of propels the song to the end point, and you kind of, I certainly for me, I listen to it and I kind of go, right, that is it's a song that takes that element of the rolling, unstoppable nature of justice and builds it into the song. It feels very effective in that respect. And that brings you to the to side 4 of the LP, by the way. The last 2 songs, Pompeii, Got a Dung, which I've mentioned before, and then the last one, which is Going On, a lovely, quiet, reflective ballad that wraps up all of the themes from the rest of the LP, ties a little bow around them, and sends them floating off into space on a pillow of dreams. The lyric is very clearly around, we tell ourselves that it's all normal till the worst of it is gone, and then you give up and you give out, and you just can't take it. How do we keep going on? It's about saying, what has the French phrase about, life begins on the other side of despair, is that you get up, you go to work, you carry on as normal, no matter what you've experienced, and you go through that, and that is the world that you live in, and that is the reality that you have, is that sometimes there is no answer, there is just a continuation. Because when the cowboys are riding off into the sunset at the end of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, there's always the kingdom of the crystal bloody skull coming around the corner. Although admittedly, that one did take 19 years to get there. So that is The Flaming Lips, At War with the Mystics, the 2006 LP. I absolutely love this LP. I will speak its praises to anybody that wants to listen. And if you don't want to listen, I'm speaking its praises to you anyway. Now, there's a whole bunch of extra songs which were released. As I said, my iTunes playlist, or my playlist of At War with the Mystics, is 37 songs long. That is a staggering amount of extra material. That's an extra 25 songs. That's 2/3 of the total amount of the sessions. And I mean, some of those are remixes, and some of those are cover versions, and some of those are collaborations and songs that don't necessarily sit anywhere else. But that's still an awful lot of material. And all of that material was scooped up, or most of it was scooped up, and on the 5.1 DVD and CD version of At War with the Mystics that was released in late 2006. Now, I'm going to go through the singles in another angle first, and then we're going to go and get to that LP. So just before the release of the album, 2005, there was a track called Marching the Hate Machines Into the Sun, which featured the Flaming Lips, featured on this album by the Thievery Corporation. The album is called The Cosmic Game. I was at the stage where I was buying compilation albums to get one-off tracks by bands that I loved. This also features Perry Farrell, by the way, of the One-Offs Addiction, and David Byrne, and a few other people whose names you probably will have noticed, and some which I haven't. I can't think of any which particularly press my buttons, but that is a track which is on there. That isn't on the At War with the Mystics. The iTunes version of At War with the Mystics did feature Bohemian Rhapsody, The Gold in the Mountain, the long mix of Yeah 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 song, and Time Travel Yes, featuring Stephen Burns. And so the first single that we had, as I've mentioned before, is The Wand. The will always negates defeat. There's a 2-track CD single here, featuring a lovely picture of a Tancom. This features a Goldfrapp remix, a remix by Goldfrapp of The Wand. The Flaming Lips return the favour, and they remixed, I think, Into the Mystic Dimension by Goldfrapp for one of their singles, which is also on my playlist. And then there's an American CD single, or a 3-track CD single, that features The Wand, You've Got to Hold On, and Time Travel Yes. There are 2 versions of Time Travel Yes, which have different vocals. One is by Steve Drozd, I think, through a vocoder. The other one is by a chap who's a philosopher called, I think, Stephen Burns. That is the version that is on the expanded iTunes version of the LP. And most of the tracks that were on the iTunes version of the LP are on the DVD there. There was also the single, the Yeah 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 song. Again, as mentioned before, this released on the 17th of April 2006. I've shown you the 7-inch. The CD features Time Travel Yes, Why Does It End? So that's one version of Time Travel Yes. And then there's a second version of it which features, and let me quickly pull this out now because I've never got around to getting the second CD. It features, yeah, well, that's a 7-inch featuring Why Does It End and Time Travel Yes. But these were also all collated together on this promotional EP with the flick of a switch. This is has the Wand's Supernaturalistic mix by Goldfrapp, My Cosmic Autumn Rebellion, Going On, and radio session versions of, and let me just quickly check, radio session versions of My Cosmic Autumn Rebellion, Going On, Unmade Bed, No Quarter, featuring a cover of Led Zeppelin, The Sound of Failure, Vein of Stars, an operatic spook version of Vein and Stars, and 2 versions of the Yeah 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 song, the Chicken Fried Hoedown Protest Rally and an Anatropis Reflex, radio session versions of it. Now those were on, I think those are on the 5.1 DVD version of the album. So let's quickly check the 5.1 DVD version of the album. And yep, they're all on here as radio sessions, 8 radio sessions alongside 6 extra tracks on the 5.1 DVD. And those extra tracks are on here are Why Does It End? You've Got to Hold On, Your Face Can Tell the Future. That's one of the songs off the Yeah 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 song. The Gold in the Mountain of Our Madness, Time Travel Yes, and a cover version of Bohemian Rhapsody by the Queen band, as well as videos of Mr. Ambulance Driver, the Yeah 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 song, The Wand, and a 2006 graduation speech by Wayne. This CD and DVD has an absolutely fabulous 5.1 mix that's put together of it. I don't fully, I've never really experienced it probably the way that I should have experienced it, but the DVD, which has now fallen down, hang on a second, I'll be back. That's what happens when you get your little teeth in your CD thingy that have started to fall out on the back. The 5.1 mix there on the DVD is fabulous, and I wish it was better known and more available. But it's a remix, I think, by Dave Friedman, and it's very, very good indeed. So, At War with the Mystics, that is the editions of the album and the songs that go with it. I really rate this album, actually. I think this is super duper. And we've got some information about the 5.1 mixes on here. It kind of has a surround sound diagram in there, and then some notes about what they've done to the mix to make the mix more exciting for you to listen to, and then some stuff like videos, outtakes. So it says, for example, Why Does It End? Has the lyrics in there. But it's also about this song represents the moment a distraught ex-boyfriend is obliterated on the highway, but it's also a metaphor for the traffic of our lives. Then you've got to Hold On, which is a song about writing a song pleading with a suicide bomber, saying, please hold on, whatever it is, you don't have to do this. Your Face Can Tell the Future, which is a song around fear of the unknown future, or the unstoppable urge to consider a future that is worse than the present. The Gold, In the Mountain of Our Madness, which is about growing up with intense brothers and idealistic expectations that could never become real. And then finally, Time Travel, Yes, and of course that cover version of Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody alongside the extra radio session tracks. If you're a Flaming Lips fan and you don't have the 5.1 CD DVDs of Soft Bulletin, Yoshimi, and At War with the Mystics, please do look them up and give them a shot. They are phenomenally good. Then we have the It Overtakes Me EP, a 4-song EP released on the 13th of November 2006. It has I'm Afraid of Dying, and then it goes into a separate track called It Overtakes Me, and then it has a track 2 is I'm Afraid of Dying, Aren't You, which is effectively the third part of It Overtakes Me, and is on the yellow vinyl 12-inch. And then we have the Free Radicals, Birds and the Bees remix of Free Radicals, and Time Travel Yes featuring Stephen Burns, the alternate version of that. So we have a pretty comprehensive kind of set of material there. As you can see, the 5.1D, if you only get one version of At War with the Mystics, I would recommend getting the CD and the DVD, because it's got 18 studio tracks, 8 radio sessions, and then it's got 4 videos as well, so that takes you up to something like 26 songs, plus 4 videos, and you probably need to get this as well, and then that takes you up to 30-ish songs. Not that necessarily stopped the band, there was other things that they were going to do. Now the other thing that I will say as a word of warning is about the mastering for At War with the Mystics. The retail CD of At War with the Mystics is a victim of the loudness wars. It is super compressed. It's got a very low dB level. Effectively, what that means is that it chops off the dynamic range at the top and bottom, and it makes everything super loud, super crunchy, super compressed. The best way to describe it is as if you dial down all of your detail so that you end up like looking at the Mona Lisa through newsprint, or perhaps if you try and watch The Shining on a television, like not a widescreen TV, like one of your old square 4:3 TVs where you're missing the detail at the sides of the sound. That is how the compression works. At War with the Mystics is one of the worst in terms of almost egregious offenders when it comes to being heavily compressed and having a low dB level. I'm not going to start a YouTube about the loudness wars and compression, but I would recommend that you listen to the DVD version instead, or the vinyl edition, which is a more sympathetic mastering. It's still really bloody loud, and I'm surprised that it doesn't jump out of the speakers, but it's a better mastering than the CD, simply because there's only so much space you can put in your vinyl grooves, isn't there? And that is At War with the Mystics. We have a couple of other things that happened. So 2007, I saw the band twice on the At War with the Mystics tour, both in London, once in December 2006, another time January 2008, just as they were starting to tour in support of the Christmas on Mars film that was just about to come out. 2007 saw a split single with Yoko Ono, Ono with the Flaming Lips doing Cambridge 1969-2007, and on the B-side a track called You and I. This is a picture disc 12-inch, one track on each side. This is the side that is Cambridge Station. That side is the track You and I with the Polyphonic Spree. David Bowie was a fan of the Polyphonic Spree, so an interesting release there. And there's a lot of collaboration, touring, and lots of live shows. But actually, the band took the time from that, and they recorded their first ever official concert release, which was released in late 2007. It was released on an unusual format. It was called an MVI, whatever that is, a music video interactive, which is effectively a DVD featuring a full live concert plus ringtones audio files. You can get the MP3s of the track off the disc by putting the disc into your laptop or desktop's CD drive or pardon me, DVD player. And this features the full, apparently legendary concert at the Oklahoma Zoo in late 2006. And that features a total of, let me just quickly check, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 13 songs and 11 really long monologues by Wayne Coyne. Wayne can really talk between songs. He makes Bono look like Dave Gahan or Dee Ramone. Some of his chat in between songs really drags on. But that's part of keeping it fresh and real and unique and right in front of your eyes, which is, I guess, is really important part of doing it. But it's not especially thrilling to watch back. If you're in the moment, you probably go, yeah, this is brilliant, really interesting. And live Flaming Lips is completely different from studio Flaming Lips. The band have a slightly expanded lineup at this period. Cliff Skerlock is on drums because Steve Droz plays drums on the studio recordings, but Steve can't play drums and guitar and keyboards all at the same time. Kind of weird, but he can't do it. And what we do have instead is a live version of the band, which is, I think, is a great concert. It's a really interesting show. They clearly put a lot of effort into the spectacle and to the moment, and it's as more than suitable as an introduction to the Flaming Lips live, although there's nothing that replaces your first time seeing them. But no, it's a really strange format because it's kind of a DVD, it's kind of a CD, it's kind of the MP3s of the live show. It's a little bit interactive. It's kind of new and unique and a bit weird when the whole world was in a format transition. So nobody really knows, is it going to be CDs? Is it going to be downloads? Is the single going to exist? Is everything going to go streaming? What's going to happen here? How's it going to work? Nobody really knew. And the MVI was a short-lived format that explored the possibilities of what you can do with a DVD as effectively almost an interactive museum of a live event. I really recommend it. If you like the Flaming Lips, please do find a copy of this. I don't know how much it costs. I don't know whether it's available. I don't know how deleted it is or not. But the show itself is almost definitely on YouTube. And it's well worth getting. And this is the UFOs at the zoo. So the Flaming Lips playing the legendary concert in Oklahoma City Zoo, where they debuted their spaceship stage set. So they brought with them a portable spaceship, which effectively the band played from and within and kind of descended from and descended to, kind of as if they were aliens that were going to come down from space and they were going to perform the show for you. That is UFOs at the Zoo by the Flaming Lips. That really brings the period around At War with the Mystics to an end. And I haven't even started to discuss in any meaningful fashion Christmas on Mars, which is odd because that's the t-shirt that I've got, and I should have remembered this. Maybe I should have worn something slightly different. But Christmas on Mars is the Flaming Lips motion picture. There is a soundtrack album called Once Beyond Hopelessness. This was released in 2008. Double-sided LP. They're available in various configurations and formats. This one, let me just quickly check. This version has the soundtrack CD to Christmas on Mars, or more correctly, I think this is the DVD actually. Yep, the DVD of Christmas on Mars. And we also have in here a 7-inch single, which I don't even know what's on this, by the way. It is a white vinyl of It's Christmas Time Again and Silent Night, Lord Can You Hear Me. So that is the white vinyl version of the picture disc, which I bought here. And in fact, there's a picture disc 7-inch released in 2004 of a couple of tracks that turned out to be later retitled and appeared on Once Beyond Hopelessness soundtrack. This is the green vinyl original version of the soundtrack to Christmas on Mars. And the soundtrack is very unusual. Most bands, you know, when they get money, they have a bit of a white elephant. They have a vanity project which they love dearly and that they want to see become a success. For the Flaming Lips, it was the Christmas on Mars film, which they'd worked on for a very long period of time, using not very much money and a huge chunk of imagination. And then when they got a little bit more money as a result of the success of Yoshimi Battles the Pink Robots, finally finished it, shooting it in the garage of Wayne's house in Oklahoma, which is just around the corner from where my ex's parents then lived, I think, or at least we went past there, and it wasn't far at all. It was pretty weird, actually, to go there and to think about, the environment where a film that I saw had actually been filmed in a garage that I could drive to within 5 minutes from there. So we have a couple of other things around this. What I will say about Christmas on Mars, by the way, and this is not a criticism, it's really ambitious. It really wants to go to great lengths and to conquer new worlds and to do weird and unusual and new things, which you wouldn't expect from a film at all. I mean, certainly, I wouldn't have thought when I watched it that this was. I kind of go, really? You're going to go there? Now, it has an early appearance by an American comedian called Fred Armisen, who you will know. He might have that role. Oh, it's that guy from The Thing. Yes, it is. But it was shot at low budget, very similar to films like Rubber, El Mariachi, Blair Witch Project, Paranormal Activity, Cinco Marink, One Cut of the Dead, made for less than £50,000. Clerks as well, not very much money, where someone's got a huge amount of imagination and they've decided they're going to see it through and they're going to do the best that they can with what they've got, which isn't always a good idea. So Rubber, by the way, in case you haven't seen it, is the film that was made with the profits from the Flat Eric single. If you remember Flat Eric being that weird kind of small gopher thing that danced madly to bad, somewhat generic techno-y stuff in the year 2000 or thereabouts. The guy took his money from that, plunged it into a film called Rubber, which is about a killer tire. And I love Rubber. I think it's a really, really good film. But it's really strange and a little bit weird, but there's nothing wrong with strange and weird, because frankly, you've got to be who you are, you've got to drive like you stole it, and you can't pretend to be anybody or anything that you aren't. It just doesn't make sense to not be that, really. So Christmas on Mars as a film, this is the DVD that comes with the vinyl edition of the album, and this is the it's the same DVD that's inside the CD there. Is an interesting experiment, and one that I'm glad that exists. It's not one I'm going to be watching too often, because if for nothing else, it does have an army of dancing space vaginas in one scene, and it does kind of lean into the Flaming Lips obsession with things like genitals, rebirth, weird sex, all that type of stuff, which runs through a lot of their work like a piece of rock. The soundtrack as well is atypical. It's not your standard Flaming Lips fare. It sounds more like the kind of horror movie soundtrack that you'd get from the 60s with something like Quatermass and the Pit, or early Doctor Who, John Carpenter, that type of thing. Moody electronica instrumentals, largely made by Russians using home mode synthesizers for a film called Surf and Robot Meet the Capitalists on Mars. Good? Yes. Great? Absolutely, pardon me, not. But well worth a watch and a listen. Hopefully it's on YouTube so you can try it before you buy it. That is Christmas on Mars. And that is the Flaming Lips period between 2006 and 2008. A period of being fiercely prolific, having more ideas and imagination than perhaps they can fully execute, and being able to go with it. Now, when I bought Christmas on Mars on CD and DVD from the Flaming Lips web store, I got the bundle that came with this t-shirt, and somewhat surprisingly, an Eat Your Own Spaceship piece of popcorn, which had 2 fake movie tickets and a little program inside. I've not opened this in the 15 years. I dare say the popcorn is inedible and possibly would kill me, but it's a lovely little thing to have. The idea being is that you open the popcorn, you eat the popcorn, you read the program, you have your 2 little tickets, you put your DVD in your DVD player, and you watch the movie, and you kind of go, Silent Running was better. So there you have it. That is the Flaming Lips. It's At War with the Mystics, UFOs at the Zoo, and Christmas on Mars, eat your own spaceship. And that is where I'm going to wrap up for now. In the meantime, take care of yourselves and each other. Stay beautiful. And if you're in Brighton at the weekend, I will see you there. I'm going to a show at the Concord. If you're not, or you're watching this sometime that isn't the 9th or 10th of August, then it doesn't matter where I am that weekend, because you will have missed me, unless you're a time traveller, at which point you can go backwards and you can meet me there. Although meeting me isn't that amazing, I do it all the time, every day. I spend all day, every day around me, and it don't impress me much. So there you go. Stay beautiful, and I will see you, hopefully, sometime soon. Okay, bye, lovely people. Bye.